Okay, you can see that. I'm actually strangely nervous about this. I put a call out and got you guys to ask me questions, anything you want. And I'm gonna sit down and answer as many as I can today. Now, I haven't actually had a look through any of these, so hence the nerves, but yeah, let's just go for it, all right? First question is from longtime subscriber, Brett. Thank you so much for commenting. I know you always getting in there quickly. 3 questions. Who will win the Tour de France? One of the Slovenians. Who do I want to win the Tour de France? I'd like Primoz to win, to be honest. I'd really like Primoz to win. I love the way that he came to the sport late. I love the way he used to do the ski jump celebration when he would win stages. I don't know, he stopped doing that now for some reason. Anyway, that's who I would like to win, and I think potentially will win with the amount of time trialing in there. When is Neuro going to do a supporters group ride? Well, when the guys get back from Europe, definitely. Supporters group ride will probably happen down around the Shire. I think that's a super idea. I want to do more of that coming up. What is the racing plans for the team in 2022, 2023? Well, guys, I think we made it pretty clear that Asia was going to be a big part of our schedule. Unfortunately, that's just not happened again this year for us. Hopefully later on in the year it might, but yeah, it's certainly not. But going forward, very much really want to push into Asia. Definitely, if you're in that part of the world, do feel free to reach out, and yeah, we'll try and set something up. Second comment is the Cycling Geek. Now, the Cycling Geek is Greek. Sorry, is the man who I met in Fresno. Well, actually, on Albury Road. Peace. How are you? Let's have a look. What is in past seasons you race with your team? Now, not so much. At first, I thought the caliber of your team this year had improved past the level where you could be functional as a teammate. When you won C2K without any specific C2K training, and one can only do this when they're at elite status, I'm thinking, why isn't he racing with the team? This is my question. Look, you're right to start with. My level is not at what the team is anymore. And that hasn't changed. I don't like to burst everyone's bubble, but the reality is that if all of the guys on my team had turned up and done C2K, they would have all beaten me. I can tell you right now. So yeah, that's just, I really struggle to get across sometimes how good these guys are. And that's the level of racing that's even not professional. Why isn't he racing with the team? That's pretty much the answer, guys. I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough. And I'm not giving up by any stretch of the imagination, because I'm completely obsessed with bike racing. So I'm going to keep trying to get selected for races. Ben Sorrow, what is your 20-minute FTP test protocol? Do you perform a hard effort before the test to use some of your anaerobic contribution? Yes. What percentage of the average 20-minute power do you take? 95? Yes. Are you well rested before the test? No, not really. To be honest, I don't do many 20-minute FTP tests. I mean, I kind of know where I'm at with that. For me, my fitness, my fitness, a gauge of my fitness for me is a lot more about repeatability. So I would be big on, I don't know, like, you know, that can change your zones and stuff, but you know, I kind of know where I'm at, but my training is more about being able to repeat efforts and perform like that. So next up, do you have a full-time job? And if so, what do you do? Interested to hear how you manage with cycling and your family. Cheers. Well, I suppose in the time that I've been on YouTube now, which is a few years, that's sort of moved and progressed. So we've got time, I might as well talk about it. So in that time, I've worked for Vodafone, then an organisation called Film in Schools. Then the kids came along, and that's really where things get murky, I suppose. We eventually made a decision that Elizabeth would go back to work full-time, and I would spend a little bit more time with the kids. Subsequently, I've done a lot of content, especially in the cycling world, for some of the sponsors that you've probably seen, between the family, the team, and the other revenue-raising stuff that we try and do in the family. As far as interested to hear how you manage with cycling and your family, that's such a movable feast. And I've broached this subject in the past on this channel, and the challenge always from that becomes people's circumstances are all so different. So I might, you see a lot of me riding between sort of midday and 2 o'clock, because obviously that's before school pickup. I get work done in the morning and I get that kind of time in there. But for someone working a corporate job, like that's completely impossible to do. So it just tends to lead to sort of comparisons that aren't really relevant. All I will say is my big thing is consistency. Like, and I'm obsessed with bike riding, so that kind of helps, but consistency. And so that just means no big days as much as I would probably like or used to do, but it's just consistent riding. And that for me seems to keep me fit enough to keep me as fit as I like to be. Big fan of Fashion Fridays, Paul Donaldson. Oh, thank you, mate. Tyre width of choice. I've converted to 35 mil and love how they absorb the bumps. Have you converted to sealant? Guys, come on, tubeless. Like, I'm literally preaching that every week. Finally, how do you keep your group set from not wearing out fast? All the Sydney rain with sand cert, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, great questions. So no, have not certainly gone anywhere near 35 mils on the road bike. I'm still running 25s on there. I'm tempted to go up to 28s. I will say that. But on the gravel bike, I'm running mountain bike tires, and that kind of answers the second part of this question. So my gravel bike, which is running a combination of some FSA stuff and some SRAM gear, guys, I'm just trashing it. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it's really sad what I'm doing to my gravel bike, but the only way for me to ride in the rain as much as I do, I just mentally am willing to accept that I'm going to destroy this group set very, very quickly and keep the road bike off the absolute slop that we are currently involved with here. So that's a pretty crap tip, isn't it? Just have a second bike that you're willing to trash. But unfortunately, that's the reality. Next up is Alec Wilson, a fashion question. Wearing full-length thermal nicks, nice, with a colourful, nice pair of socks. Do the socks go over or under the nicks? Great question, Alec. And I love the way you're going to go from colourful socks, just a little pop of colour. And that's the key here. It's a pop of colour. It's got to be under the thermal nicks. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of it. Maybe unless you're doing a bit of cross. But yeah, under the nicks. Otherwise, your calves look fat. There you go. I said that in real life. There's the title of the vlog. Stop blaming me on ETS. All right. Yay or nay? Socks with coloured elastic band. So like at the top, fluoro orange, when the rest of your kit is uniformly dark coloured. Love it. Love it. I'm a big fan of the sort of, like muted kit with like accent accessories. Big fan of that. Yep, definitely, mate. Go for it. 100%. Hotcakes. Thoughts on the apparent death of mid to high end group sets from Shimano and SRAM? And you think Campy will follow? P.S. Love your work. The apparent death of mid to high end group sets. Have you looked at the price of Di2 12-speed? I must admit, I don't really understand that. As far as where I think Campy will go, I mean, they're going to go wireless. We've known that for a few years, but I don't know what's going on with it. Yeah, sorry, HC. Don't really know where you're headed with that. All right, Fred, nice. I also like to ride alone for all my Zone 2 rides and keep my heart rate capped so I can hit my 2 hard rides a week at a quote-unquote bleeding out my eyeballs level. My question is, are you only doing Zone 2 exclusively? If so, why? If not, how many and what type of hard rides do you do in a typical week? Now, I don't just do Zone 2 rides by any stretch of the imagination. I think you might be referring to a comment I made on one of the vlogs with Tyler. I think maybe what I was getting at there is on longer days, like if I'm gonna do a 4-hour ride, it'll tend to just be an endurance ride. I don't tend to mix it up with hard stuff in that. And that's purely, it's not necessarily a training thing. It's more that I don't want to destroy myself that day because normally I've got stuff to do, So if I do a 4-hour ride with lots of hard efforts, there's probably lots of good training adaptation from it, but it also just means I'm dead for the day and potentially the next day. So what I like to do is keep my endurance ride as an endurance ride and therefore not be dead the day and be able then to do hard efforts the next day. So a lot of my training as such is filtered around my life. So yeah, I'd like to do super hard days with super hard efforts, but it's not really realistic, unfortunately. Apex 820, what's that a reference to, like a corner or something? It's not a bad username. Is there a such thing as too much cycling? Sometimes I feel like I do nothing outside of cycling. It's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I do think there is. Like, if you're getting on the bike and you're, that first sort of 20 minutes, you're trying to motivate yourself to be riding, then you probably shouldn't be riding, you know? And I genuinely do feel that there's a lot of value from taking, you know, a couple of days off and get that sort of, and you'll know when to get back on because you'll be desperate to start riding again. I must say, like, for me, I don't tend to schedule days off as much. I use the weather as my guide. So like I might sometimes see, you know, a couple of days of shit weather coming and then be like, okay, I'll ride up to that and then just take that weather period off. That's why I get so shitty when the forecast's wrong. So yeah, anyway, I will often do that. Dan gets annoyed at me because I do move my rides around on today's plan a bit with sort of weather in mind. S3166420 rolls off the tongue, mate. Rolls off the tongue. Is the chop in CP by invite? Also, what speed KW are you hitting to stay with the group? No, it's not by invite. You just turn up and start riding. It's pretty fast. It's pretty fast. So sitting in that group now on good days, you're getting close to 50 k's an hour. Like, it's seriously fast. And if you get a good sort of 10, 15 guys riding consistently, it will be up that fast. And yeah, look, for me, it's not about, obviously what you're trying to ask me there is like, what average speed do you need to practice at to be used to it? It's not about that at all, because it's more about being able to get to learn to be in a group like that. So for me, just come and give it a go, hey? Say hello when you do. We can get away from sitting with my weights. Where's the best place to go if we bring our roadies and want to ride over 100 k's? We will use the accommodation as a base point. Kangaroo Valley. There you go. Cheers, big fan of your team and the videos. Awesome. KD to Miami. Don't see him with the book, plus Phoenix is too small of a market for him. True. I'd love to see him. I would love to see him go to New Orleans and partner with Zion. This might have all been, everyone's like, what are you talking about? That's just me. Well-behaved Wilson. Chris, you seem to have used them all. Which is your favorite all-time bike computer unit? None of them. We're still searching. And that's really the unfortunate reality. I mean, I as I said to you in some of the vlogs with the Hammerhead, I really kind of thought that was getting there, but I'm being let down by the basics, and that's the screen and the battery on that. The actual user interface is the best easily, but it's the actual like hard things that you need that are letting it down. This Garmin 1040 Solar that I'm trying at the moment, which I'll do a review on, not getting much solar at the moment here, is a really good device, but it's Garmin, so it's just that funky Garmin Connect. If you were going out and buying one right now, God, that's a good question. That's a good question. I would lean towards the Garmin. I really would. Phoenix Arui. Don't know when I gonna race. The races dates drop out last week. What training should I do to prepare for this race besides, of course, Zone 2 rides? Don't know when I gonna race. I'm not really quite sure what you're asking, Phoenix. Sorry. What training should you do? Throw some intensity in and get yourself prepped. Hey Chris, hey Chris, those vlogs in the US were awesome. My question is, will you race a gravel race? I don't follow basketball, but I like when you talk about it. Adrian, yeah, look, the gravel racing scene is not as big in Australia as it is in the US, definitely. And that's just the reality of it. In fact, there's only, I think, 1 or 2 gravel races as it stands in Australia. I will definitely get into it when it starts happening. I don't have the right bike for it. That's always a good excuse to go get one. The gravel bike that I have is very much a touring bike. Very much a touring bike. It's got mountain bike wheels on it and everything. So I'd have to kind of look into that. And yeah, basketball thing is funny for me. Like, I love the off-season stuff. I love all the trading. How cool would that be in cycling if we had like free agents and all that kind of thing? I reckon that would add so much more interest to the sport. For someone working full-time, is tour endurance rides still relevant? Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Definitely still relevant to you. Don't get obsessed with just doing intensity. And I always talk about training from my own personal perspective, not being a coach, but you know, the reality is in endurance, anything endurance is just the base of the sport. Like, you can't do the sport without it. Don't sleep on it and enjoy it, because endurance rocks. Sam YZ, thoughts on the Madone 2023? Okay, I reckon this is a bigger issue. Something's going on here. And I'm going to do some research about it, and I'm going to do a vlog about it, because something's going on in that chain stay, seat post area with disc brake bikes to do with compliance and kind of overall ride quality. There's something going on there, because the fact that we moved the brakes from where they were with rim brakes to down on the chain stays, something's happened to ride quality, and I reckon the frame manufacturers have finally worked this out, and they're doing something about it. You see all the brands, or a lot of brands, trying to dampen the stiffness in that area of the bike. So thoughts on the Trek 23 is, to me, it's just another indicator that something's going on in that part of the world. But the aero-ness of it is kind of funny, and I like that concept, but yeah, we'll see. I'm going to do something on that. Where is Katie going and why? Is Phoenix? Potentially, I think you're probably favourite. I just don't know how they're going to fit them into the salary cap. Well, not that you have a salary cap, but anyway. 2023 NBA champs, hot take, Pelicans. There you go. Zion to come out and smash it. I've been to Sydney last week, got COVID, bugger. Otherwise, I like, that should be your comment, just that. Otherwise, I like that finally they finished the tram on George Street. They haven't. Mate, go further up the other end of George Street down the Ultimo end. Still working on it. Will Nero Continental ever have a junior team? Thanks. Comes down to money, mate. This is, you know, people think that, like, and time. Like, I talked about full-time job. Like, if someone wants to pay me to do a junior team, I will. But, you know, it's a lot of hard effort. It takes 3 people doing, you know, a lot of work to just get guys to a bike race. So I'd love to do a women's team. I'd love to do a women's junior team. But we need, yeah, I just don't, like, I don't want to rant about this, the kind of finance of domestic cycling again, but, you know, it's pretty impossible. Have you done much riding around Wollongong? Not really. Planning to come down for World Champs? Yep. Thoughts on the course? Cool question. Yes, so I haven't done much around Wollongong. Obviously around Shoalhaven and Berry I've done heaps. Planning to come down for World Champs? Hell yeah. Thoughts on the course? It's going to be an awesome course, awesome race. I just would have thought we would have tailored it a bit more to Caleb. Like, just make it an out and back to the docks and have a big bunchy. But no. Yeah, so funny. Javier Rubio, does your FSA group set often get misconfigured? Yes, my 11-speed does all the time. I have the same group set and have to configure every week because randomly the gears stop changing correctly. Is this some trick? No. Javier, that is one of the reasons we are changing to a 12-speed group and a completely different wireless protocol. I have to change it basically, I have to reconfigure it. So he's asking about basically indexing the gears. I have to do that almost every second ride, which sucks, really. But FSA are well aware of this, and it's going to be really interesting with the 12-speed whether they have fixed that problem. Super keen to let you guys know about that. Some exciting news coming with that. Glenn Nickel, opinions on Shimano 105 DO2, also the super expensive cost of bikes these days. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of 105, have been for ages. It was on one of the Bianchis that I had for a long time, put a lot of miles into it, and the mechanical version, so big fan of it. Also, the super expensive cost of bikes these days. For me, it's not actually, that's not the gripe I have, because, you know, it's good to have expensive bikes, have premium stuff. My issue is the mid-level isn't as good as it should be. Like a mid-level frame with like 105 Ultegra on it, still in Australia is costing like $8,000-9,000. And it's an 8 kilo bike. You know, I just don't think that mid-level is good enough at the moment. You're going to see that change because, like I said before, I reckon the frame manufacturers are coming on to something with compliance, and hopefully we can get some better frames in that part of the world. When do you go from base training to interval training? Always. I never just do base training. Greg, that's the nature of, I think, being in Australia and the way that we, you know, there are always events, there are always races, and plus, like, just doing base training is boring as, like, it really is. So for me, yeah, I would always have some intervals. Even if I'm prioritizing base for a certain period, I would always have intervals in there. Richard Knight, KD, best bet is Phoenix and get as far away from Kyrie as possible. Totally agree with you, Richard. Does Kyrie go to the Lakers? That's the next one, eh? Juju Ryan, I am thinking about getting my first road bike. Keen mountain biker, but love road racing as well. It looks like fun. It is. Any recommendations on what to look out for on a used bike? I want to buy an older bike which is rather cheap so I can upgrade the components and won't spend too much money if I don't enjoy it. So if you are going to buy an older second-hand bike, the issue here with then trying to upgrade it is that you potentially are going to run into problems with compatibility. So if you are going to upgrade stuff going forward, you're probably going to have to look at a disc brake bike, just because the actual accessibility of rim brake stuff is going to be more and more difficult as you're going forward. The only other thing I would say is with your frame, make sure it is the right size. Don't skimp, don't see a good deal and it might be the frame's a bit small for you and you think, stuff it, it's a good deal, I'll just get it anyway. No, you really want to prioritize a frame that does fit you. I've played with that in the past on the channel. I'll link some of those videos below, but like a frame size really does matter. Oh, and I would love to hear more about your time in Ireland. Okay, yeah, so I lived, how far back should we go? I lived in Ireland for 8 years. So I lived in Sandymount, Dublin, Ballsbridge and Booterstown. Played rugby for Monkstown and yeah, just started riding a bit into the Wicklow Hills, and that's sort of where the obsession came from. We moved back to Australia when I was 30, something like that, just after we were married. And yeah, we've been back here in Australia ever since, and we'll definitely go back at some point, definitely. But our life is very much in Australia at this point in time. Also in Ireland is where I kind of picked up all my digital media stuff. So I did some work for Apple when I was there, and that's because, as you probably know, they're based in Cork, and some freelance stuff as an ADE. I won't tell you what that acronym stands for because it's kind of lame. Robert Sanders, what hydration energy drinks do you like and why? Which one do you think is not worth buying? Hammer Nutrition is not worth buying. All the rest seem pretty good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Infinite Nutrition for race day stuff, definitely. I used Vegan's Flow gear when I was in the US, which was pretty good. And look, there's nothing wrong with Staminade either. I'm a kind of fan of Staminade, especially for training. Like if you just doing 2 hours. For me, like a lot of my training stuff is that 2 hour window, so that might just be, you know, 1 bottle of drink to get me through that. How is the disc brake bike going? Are you officially converted? Oh, look, I've been really impressed with the performance of the Groupset as far as the braking and all that kind of stuff goes, but I will say I've sent the frame back to Devel. So that was a prototype frame. I gave my feedback on that, and they're going to produce a new frame or an updated frame based on the feedback that I gave. My issue with disc brake bikes has always been that kind of mix between the stiffness and the ride quality. And for me, that was just overly stiff. So they're working on that. I'm going to send out something that's a bit more based with around ride quality, which I think you guys would appreciate as well. Brass Tinman, one by setup, thoughts when you rode with Tyler. Tell you what, that was really interesting, wasn't it? Okay, so the performance of it I quite liked. I was very impressed with its range. I have to say, very impressed with its range. I hated the look of it. Like I did. It just looks stupid. I'm sorry. Like, it does look dumb. But as far as the performance of it, I could get around that. There's something about the simplicity of it that I do appreciate. So yeah, there's no hate towards that. It's just the aesthetic of it was a bit meh. Rim versus disc. There's a theme here, isn't there? The rim versus disc, because someone had to ask. Yeah, look, I would quite happily keep riding my rim brake bike. I've said that a million times and I will continue to say that. From where I live, I don't see any point in moving. But, you know, like for example, and I'm sorry, that's just me. There is something that fascinates me about disc, and I'm more than happy to keep trying it and, you know, seeing if there's some gains to be made there. But my life, I'd choose rim, I'm sorry. Mr. at Chris Miller, where is KD going? Are you asking me? You are asking me. I'm hoping the Pelicans. 2, should any team ever entertain non-vax, no-play Kyrie bum-ass? Should any team ever entertain no-vax? The Lakers will. He's a bum-ass though. Where is KD going? I like Miami as his destination. Fair enough. And the 4th part, which bikes would you put KD and Kyrie on in a head-to-head Tour de France stage? I don't quite understand. Which teams would I put them on? I think I'd get KD on Ineos and Kyrie can go and B&B hotels or something, as far as I'm concerned. Artie, how are you, Artie? Good man. Western Sydney represent. 2 questions. Why have you still not cut the sleeves on your rain jacket? And 2, how do we get the bearded mechanic back on his damn bike riding again? That's a great shout. Rain jacket cut is coming, Artie, I promise. I keep promising him that. And he's referring to Aaron. Many of you probably know, but Aaron does a lot of my mechanic work between Aaron and Felicia at Cycling Projects. So yeah, and Aaron was a weapon. Aaron's won Bowie in Sydney, and he's taken up an apprenticeship as a mechanic. So as you can probably imagine, his time is very limited. Shout to Aaron. Jethro Cooney, what learnings can we gather, implement from American crit and gravel scene feel like since COVID just blew up even more? It's all about social media. They have embraced content. Like you go to a gravel race over in the US, you go to a crit and there'll be 1,000 photos of you, there'll be some video of you doing it because that's what people want to do. People want to be able to go do an event on the weekend and then on Monday go into the office or into their virtual meeting and show the pictures of them doing some sick bike ride and bike race. Like that's what gets people to buy in, and we still don't get that here. Like we still don't get that. We just do, you know, some of the crits are great and they'll, you know, thank God we've got so many sort of, you know, voluntary photographers like Richard Shriver and Flo who come along and do that stuff. But like, yeah, we totally miss that. You know, I would, don't start me on that. Yes, TH24GG1, what tyre width for crit racing? Well, my wheels aren't that wide, so 25mm for me, but I'm not against 28s. Not hating on that. RSG 1989, how about trying to be a pro team then a continental? Money. And to do that, I think we need to, you know, be looking at some sort of international sponsorship. Like it's just not realistic. Oh, it's not realistic. Yeah, and see the other challenge you have in Australia is there's no professional racing in Australia. So you would automatically be overseas. And I think that's hard for people to gather. Like we can be a continental team in Australia, but there's no continental racing, so we have to send people overseas to do that continental racing. Adam PF26, Mini Fashion Friday segment, rate the Tour de France kits. Okay, I really like Bora Hansgrove. I really dislike DSM. EF for me is okay. Yeah, I mean, I like the bikes, the accessories make that kit for me. Like the helmet's just ridiculous. I love it. And I hate to say it, but for some reason, I kind of still like FDJ. FDJ's kit's kind of nice. Tom and Rochelle's first dance, talking about KD, where is Kyrie going? Who knows, you ever going to come back to the UK for holes? Well, I wouldn't call Ireland the UK. It's We'll get in a lot of trouble for that. Kyrie's going to go to the Lakers. Yeah, look, as you guys probably know, like we obviously massive Elizabeth's family and everything in Ireland. So to go back to Ireland, and I know this sounds bad, is not necessarily a holiday because you are visiting. It's just, you know the way going back to everything works. That's why California is so good, because she has some family there. They come across and, it feels like a holiday, and it's a halfway house, and we get some sun, which you wouldn't get in Ireland. Max Lumens, what is the long-term vision for Nero? Well, I would love to have a women's team. Like, that would be the ultimate goal for me. And that trumps really, pushing a men's team into any kind of higher level. It would be to get enough backing and enough funding to be able to, and support, to have a women's team. Definitely is the long-term vision. When is the new bike review coming? Well, of the AO2, it's not coming anytime soon because that frame has been sent back. That prototype is tested. I've given some feedback on it, specifically around stiffness and ride quality, and we'll have another one to test out super soon. Bike and lift, Dad. Best aero bike for the money. We'll see. For the money is the thing. I liked the Canyon. I did. I'm going to really try and ride some more bikes. I think some of the things that's coming out of this is I want to try and ride some more bikes so I can be a bit better in my info. Because I'm getting a lot of questions here about like, what bike should I get? And a lot of I'm not able to answer with enough experience. So I'm going to ride some more bikes. All right? Deal. At 33, and am I too old to compete? Compete at what? No, of course not. Just getting into the sport, mate. Gabby Avila. Hello, Fresno, California here. How many hours a week do you recommend an amateur to ride, and what is best tips for nutrition? Also, do you think cooling clothes will cool a person in hot climates such as Fresno? How long's a piece of string, really? How many hours a week do you recommend to ride? All I would suggest is consistency over bulk. So by that, I mean 2-hour rides, 1-hour rides over consistently, rather than like 1 6-hour day at the end of the week, because you'll just destroy yourself. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. Like with an event like Kaiser, is people would get their head around the idea that they have to do some big smash on the weekend to get themselves prepared to see if they could do it. Like do 100 miles the week before. Like it's irrelevant. Just consistency, because that big day, like your body's not able to do that and recover from that. You'll just bucket a load of fatigue into your body. So don't do that consistently. Also, do you think cooling clothing will cool a person in hot climates such as Fresno? Now, I've been a hater for a long time on the cooling base layer, but as you know, I have embraced it this year, and I love it. I ran it all time I was in Fresno in the 41, 42 degrees, over 100 degree Fahrenheit stuff. Big fan of a cooling base layer. Get around it. Would you consider a junior racing team? How is the atmosphere in the NRS peloton? Yeah, definitely. Porter White. Comes down to money. Yeah. So, there is money. Always would consider. What's the best place you've ridden? Also, can I come visit you in the Netherlands? I'm local. Well, definitely. Go and, Jesse, get in touch with this man. I'm not in the Netherlands currently. Where is the best place you've ridden? Well, I've got to say California's up there. Like it really is. Just the ease of getting around. Obviously, you don't have the language barrier of when you're riding around in Europe. And only thing missing is the kind of iconic nature of the stuff that you're doing. Like the climbs are as good and as hard, but they're not, the Quad Affair or Alpe d'Huez. So, yeah. Justine Manyard. Oh, and Kangaroo Valley in Australia. Justine. Oh, and Adelaide. Is that it? Yeah. Justine, do you think if Drops and Hoods will be on? Actually, let me find out for you. Oh, hang on. Sadly, Drops and Hoods will not be on. I just texted the event organizer, and yeah, it's too close to L'Etape and the way things have worked out. So yeah, unfortunately, Drops and Hoods will not be taking place. How'd you like that? Real time. Kevin Wells, did you chat to VC about running a race team? Pick up any tips? You seem to have a lot in common, riding style, etc. It must be good to spend time together. Look, yes. Look, we chat about everything, to be honest. The direction of Nero is very different to his team. I'd let him very much talk about that, but you know, his team is quite separate in a good way to what he does, which gives him a little bit more freedom. It's certainly something that I'm going to look at going forward as well. But like, his team's not set up, it's not at the same level. Like, you know, we've had 3 guys come through the team now who are in the world tour. Like, that's a big part for us. Like, that's not as an important element for him. Like, domestically is a far more important element for him. So yeah, and we both picked up tips. I can't thank the guy enough, actually. He's a good dude. Like, he's very earnest, and he comes across, like, on social media as very earnest, and he's earnest in real life, and I appreciate that. So hopefully we'll get to ride a bit more, actually. Things potentially planned. Purple Cow. But who would have won Kaiser? Do you think your daughters will eventually get into cycling competitively? I don't know. Where we live's challenging to get into it. Just like, you can't just jump on a bike and start riding as a kid. So we've got to drive to somewhere to do it. And I think that matters, do you know? Like, I think that as a kid, just that freedom doesn't exist where we are, which is a bit sad. So, yeah, we'll see. They've certainly got competitive nature, that's for sure. Larry Brighton, how much of a jump is it from B grade to A grade crits? Sutherland crits and Eastern Creek, for example. Larry. Not all crits are created equal. I would say to you that the jump in Eastern Creek, grand. Like, you can sit in that bunch and fall asleep. Like, you could, like, ride A grade today, no problems. Sutherland, you can't do that. Especially if it's a small field, Sutherland is hellish. I think the last race I did there, I was dropped. Quite considerably dropped. Whereas Eastern Creek just can cruise around. So, a lot of it's confidence, but definitely start with doing it at Eastern Creek, then at Heffron, then at Sutherland. Any tips for not bonking on a 120-mile race? Johnny Darko's answered the question for me. Yeah, get your carbs into you. So Johnny said 80 to 100 grams of carbs every hour. Do that and train your body to do that. So, you know, don't just turn up on race day and suddenly be like, I've been just drinking water all my rides and now suddenly I'm going to ingest 100 grams of carbs. That's going to be a disaster for you. So once a week or once every 2 weeks, do a training session that involves that amount of carbohydrate. Richard, I think this is the last question. Who do you think will win the Tour de France, and will gravel riding become as big as road riding? Who do I think will win? I would like Primoz to win. And will gravel riding become as big as road riding? No. Would love to hear your thoughts on ultra long distance riding. Yeah, that's a whole other world, isn't it? That is a whole other world, James. We haven't got into it as much here in Australia, and I think a lot of that comes down to the shortage of routes and the dangers of riding on rural and regional roads at the kind of times that you would be on the road. Like, really sadly, we saw that with the Cross Australia ride a couple of years ago. I think it was on the Monaro Highway. That young man passed away. And it's really dangerous. We just don't have the highway and then the B road, the A road, the B road, the C road that runs next to it as much in this country. Like, you will have traffic on regional roads, and that's dangerous for guys doing ultra long distance stuff. Physiologically, I would love to do it. Like, it sounds like it would be right down my avenue. But yeah, that other element does sort of frighten me a little bit about it. That was fun. I actually really enjoyed that. Guys, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, keep the comments and the questions coming. I'll try and make this a little bit more regular, but for now, See you soon. Peace.